Hi, I'm Cindy Cloward with Riley Blake Designs, and today we are finishing our Wildflower Seeds sew along. Look at the beautiful quilt behind me. We have created so many beautiful flowers, a garden full of flowers, and now it's time to assemble it in one quilt. So today we're going to work on the cornerstones and sashing. This is what's left to finish on my quilt. I've got the last 4 rows. I just need to finish that 5th remaining row. So give it a look. This represents a lot of work, doesn't it? So we're just going to add that top row to this quilt top. Here's my 4 remaining flowers, so we'll put those to the side, and we're going to talk about our sashing and cornerstones. Like throughout this sew along, you need the pattern, Kelli Fannin pattern. That's in the black and white and gray tones to finish the quilt, and it gives you all the measurements to make the cornerstones and sashing. We have that Wildflower Seeds supplemental guide that tells you the fabrics that you need for the binding, the borders, the sashing, and the cornerstones. So have those handy, ready to go. Now let's get started on the 2 remaining things I need to show you how to create. So let's start with the sashing. It actually tells you to do the cornerstones first, but it doesn't matter. You can work on the sashing first if you would like. Gives you all the measurements that you need, and you're gonna strip piece this unit right here. You're gonna make lots and lots of these strip piecing units. And sometimes I find it helpful, instead of pinning, I give it a good press before I take it to my machine. It's that heat adhesive, and you're going to use a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. That just works out a little bit better to just do a thread or 2 less than a 1/4 inch seam. And again, I have decreased my stitch length to 2.0. I find that is the right amount of distance. I like a tighter stitch length when I'm working with batiks. Okay, take it over to your pressing station. Set your steams and then open them up. Usually do a finger press. And then I just take that nose, run it along there. Use your clapper to smooth it out. Now it's ready to go. Okay, we take it back here. And then we're going to sew this other strip to the green center strip. Give it a quick little press if you'd like, and then take it to your machine and sew. Okay, let's take it to our pressing station. Give it a nice press. And I'm going to press that seam towards the green fabric. Okay. Now we need to cut our pieces. So we need, you can trim it down, like true it up real fast. Make sure everything's lined up. And we need 2 of this 1.5 inch piece right there, 2 of those. So we've got our 2 1.5, and now we need a 2.5 inch strip. We need 3 of those. So 1, 2, and 3. Just have a little bit extra. So now we're going to lay out our sashing on the 2 ends. We've got this 1.5 inch, and we've got this 1.5 piece in between these blocks, or these little units here. And it's going to extend beyond this, but you can get the idea. There. We're going to sew those all together to create that sashing piece. So you can just chain piece, and again, you can do all your strips at once, or you can do one section at a time, whatever's easiest for you. So let's take it to our machine, and let's just start sewing. Again, just slightly less than a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just a scant. Okay, clip in between, lay them out. Just remember that this block is on the outside. So I'm going to sew those 2 together. I think I'm going to sew this one on there for now. Okay, just make sure there's that white strip in between those 2. Sew that on there, and then this will sew on that end. Okay, let's take it over to our pressing station. You can press as you go, but I like to press at the end. I'm just going to clip one of these threads on there. And sometimes I press from the back side when there's all these little pieces. And then I know exactly where I want my seams to flip. You can turn it over. Give it a nice press. Take your clapper, just really push down on those seams. Okay, and what you want to see is this long continuous strip that they're all lined up. And if you cut accurately and you sew accurately, you're going to get this finish. And you're going to make a lot of these. And that's why I think Kelli Fannin has you do them in small groups so they come out very accurate like this. So you're going to become an expert at these sashing. The next thing we need to create is these sweet little 9-patch cornerstones. So I've already talked about strip piecing. You're going to strip piece with this wheat with the green inside, like that. Then you're going to have the green with the wheat inside. And now we are going to cut out 1.5 inches. This is already, looks like it's pretty good on the outside, so I don't need to true that up at all. We're just gonna make a lot of 1.5 inch strips. So you're gonna make a lot more of that those strips than these strips, because you only need, I'm gonna have to true that up. It's true. You only need one of these strips on the inside of this 9 patch. Okay, those are good to go. So you've got these strip pieced and cut. Now let's make our 9 patch, which is so easy from here, because you're just gonna sew this to this and then this to this. And you're gonna become an expert on 9 patches. So I'm going to make sure, and I press them. You want to nest your seams, so I'm just going to flip these seams over. So you should press to the green side when you're pressing your strips, and then they'll be ready to nest. This got pressed to the other side, so I'm just flipping it over so we can nest that like that. Of course, I got my bird pins to nest our seams. We love our bird pins. That's ready to go. Okay, let's pull it over here. What we want to see are those corners lining up just like that. I'm going to finger press this to the outside. And we're going to nest these final seams, the final seam. Okay, let's take a look. This is what we want to see, are those points lined up. Now it's time to press. And again, sometimes I press from the back side first. And I'm going to press like this. Okay, and our 9 patch is finished. The next thing that I recommend doing is making sure your 9 patches are all squared up at 3.5 inches. It's great to have this rotating mat to work around, and this one's a little bit larger, so I'm going to trim around all 4 sides. What's great with our Cute Cuts square up rulers is you can just line all your shapes up, so that lines perfectly with that inch block. That's all lined up. And I'm just going to trim around all my sides. And now this is ready to go. You are going to make so many of these 9 patches. You're going to become an expert. And you're really going to want to make sure they're all squared up before you sew them together. Okay, these are good to go. For this last row assembly, I only need 5 of these cornerstones. So I'm going to bring them in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I need lots of strips. I've got all my strips here. And let's start assembling our sashing with our final row. So I'm going to move that over there. And so it's going to go sashing, flower, sashing. So for each of these, we can sew that. And if it's slightly off, this is just ever so slightly off, I'm just going to give it a little tug when I sew. So I'm going to grab my pins. I'm going to pin outside and that's that side. Do that sashing here. Okay, so I'm working from the right side to the left. And so your last block is going to need 2 strips to finish that row on both sides. So I'm going to pin it on the end like we have been doing, and then in the center. And most of these, as long as you've got them facing like this is a little directional, so you have to make sure that's facing the right way. This doesn't matter. This one, if you care which way the flowers are facing, notice we have that little teal flower at the top, so be mindful of which way this block is facing, and then the first block doesn't matter so much. So let's take these to the machine and sew all of our sashing on each side of our flowers. Okay, I'm going to take my first block, which has 2 sashing pieces, clip it there, and we'll finish up with this block. So we chain piece it together. Okay, let's just clip the threads in between. All right, now we're ready to sew our flowers together. Now it's important to make sure they're in the right place. So we know this one flower is on that end. Then it goes this and this. So I'm going to sew these 2 flowers together. Oops. And these 2 flowers together. So again, I'm going to pin my 2 ends. Again, give them a little tug if they don't exactly line up, but pin your outsides first. And once they're pinned outside, you can pin your center right here. That's good to go. Okay, this row is finished. It actually goes this direction. But before we're going to sew it to the main body of our quilt top, we need to do a top border. So I'm going to move this out of the way. It's the exact same as the bottom border, and you can do it at the same time, but I only need to do 1 border now. So we need a bunch of our strips. We only need 5. We need, let's see, 4 strips and 5 of our little 9-patch cornerstones. So this is going to be important that we nest our seams. So we line, because this is how it looks. So we want that block lined up with that print. So we're going to make sure these are all nested. So we get that continuous strip. It looks like a continuous strip. And then the last one is going to get 2 cornerstones. So if you've pressed to the green side, then when you flip these over, then your seams should nest. Okay, grab your little bird pins, nest your seams. If they don't quite line up, give them a little tug, and they will. Okay, we're flipping this one over. We're going to start with this one because we've got two sides. Okay, let's go sew. All right, let's bring it over here. Clip our threads. And we've got to pin again. Okay, I'm all out of pins. They're all sitting over here. That's what's great about this magnetic pin holder is it can just pick them up so quickly. So I'll grab my pins there. And again, we're just lining that up. Again, nesting our seams. Okay, 3 more seams and our top border is finished. Okay, so here we go. See, that's what that interesting pattern looks like. So kind of cool, pattern inside a pattern when you start putting all your pieces together. Okay, now let's put that top border on our quilt top. Again, be mindful of where your top of your quilt is. And here it is. So now I have not pressed my seams yet. So now we want to nest those seams, and I'm going to flip that flower side out, and I flip here. So we're going to be doing a lot of pinning now because we want everything to line up. So not only am I pinning to this flower right here, I need to pin and nest these seams of this 9 patch, my cornerstone, to the other sashing on the side. So we're pinning there. And then you can kind of skip over to here. And I'm gonna pin that to the outside. So that's going outside. Again, I'm nesting my seams. You can kind of toss a pin in the middle, pull it like that, find your center. Let's pin it in the center. You are just going to be doing lots of pinning, and it'll pay off on how everything lines up. So just be patient. Okay, now that we have our top border all finished, let's go sew it on. Okay, our top border is on. And that's how you assemble all the quilt. You do a border, your row, because your sashing's all done, border, row. And if you have got ending up with the bottom border fabric or sashing piece, and if you pin as you go along, this is what you want to see. You want to see those corners all lined up. You want that continuous line. It's almost like a woven basket around these flowers. So let's give it a press. I'm just going to give the top border a press. And then we're going to assemble this top row and top border to our quilt top. And you can see that we worked the bottom up because this is our last row to put on. But you can work from the top down, bottom up, whatever works for you. Okay, so this is all ready to go. Let's grab our quilt top and let's make sure we've got it going the right way. Yes, we do. So I'm going to lay that out like this. And just double check. Yep, we've got that beautiful iris on top of this kind of rose flower. I'm going to flip it over. Let's make sure that's right. Yep, flip it over like that. And we begin our pinning again. That outside edge, nesting those seams. It's not super hard, it just takes time. And again, if you've cut accurately, you've sewn accurately, I never recommend changing machines when you're making a project like that, because that can make a difference of your seams lining up or not. So use the same machine when you're making a quilt like this. Okay, we've got that lined up. Or into our next intersection right here, where that strip meets this cornerstone. Just take your time nesting your seams. And I mentioned working from the bottom up, but you can work in rows, sections at a time, because it is super bulky to try and sew it all together at a time. So you can assemble this however works best for you, but working in sections is always a good idea. And that was our final seam. Let's take a look. The last thing you'd need to do is press everything all out and then just take it to your long arm quilter. We did an edge-to-edge quilting. I think it was beautiful. I don't even think you need a custom quilting because the flowers speak for themselves. They're just so lovely. So let's take a look. Here we go. It is finished. This has been such a fun sew-along to do with all of you. We've created some beautiful flowers together, and I have enjoyed sewing month to month. So thank you for sewing along with me and Riley Blake Designs. We'll see you next time for our next sew-along.